They don't tell you about the silence when you first land at Pearson International. It's a sterile, cold silence that masks the roar of the machine you've just entered. You arrive with a suitcase full of dreams and a heart full of hope. But the shadow fact no one mentions is that Canada isn't a country. It's a high-subscription service you didn't realize you signed up for. The air smells of jet fuel and expensive coffee, a precursor to the $7 lattes that will soon drain your spirit. You look at the "Welcome to Canada" signs, but your eyes don't see the fine print. The cost of entry is your time, your sanity, and a middle-class dream that is rapidly evaporating into the thin, frozen air. You think you're here to build a life, but the system sees you as a fresh unit of labor to fuel a real estate bubble that's larger than the GDP of entire nations. The curiosity gap begins here. Why do some immigrants thrive, while 90% end up trapped in a cycle of perpetual getting by? The answer isn't in the hard work. It's in the dark psychology of a system designed to keep you on the treadmill. Do you feel that slight chill? It's not just the weather. It's the realization that the game is rigged before you even exit the terminal.
Your first paycheck arrives, and it's a visceral punch to the gut. You saw the gross pay on your contract and did the math. You felt rich. But then you look at the net pay and see the CRA's cold, calculated bite. The federal tax, the provincial tax, the CPP, the EI. It's as if the government took a pound of flesh before you could even buy a loaf of bread. You're standing in a cramped basement apartment in Brampton, the ceiling just inches above your head, realizing that after rent and taxes, you have less than you did in the country you left. This is the tax trap. Most Canadians accept this as the price of civilization, but the wealthy know it's a hurdle designed to keep the working class from accumulating capital. You're working 40 hours a week just to fund a system that seems to give back less every year. The walls of that basement feel like they're closing in, smelling of damp concrete and broken promises. How does one man turn this measly remains of a paycheck into a fortune? The loop opens. There is a way to make the CRA work for you, but it requires a level of psychological warfare most aren't prepared for. You're not just fighting for money. You're fighting for the right to own your time in a country that wants to lease it from you forever.
Walking into a Loblaws in 2024 feels like entering a high-stakes casino where the house always wins. You pick up a brick of butter and see a price tag that looks like a typo. It's not. This is the reality of the Canadian oligopoly. You see the yellow no-name banners, a psychological trick to make you feel like you're saving, while the margins on your basic survival are being squeezed by billionaires. You watch families around you discreetly putting items back on the shelf, the silent shame of the disappearing middle class. You realize that inflation is just a polite word for the theft of your purchasing power. The Bank of Canada prints, and you pay the price at the checkout counter. This is where the emotional pain becomes physical, and not in your stomach every time the scanner beeps. You're working harder, but your grocery bag is getting lighter. The shadow fact here is that the grocery giants aren't just selling food. They're managing your expectations of what a good life looks like. If you can't afford cheese, how will you ever afford a home? The gap between your reality and the Canadian dream is widening, and the bridge is made of high-interest debt that the banks are all too eager to hand you. But what if the grocery store was your first classroom in wealth? What if the secret to millions started with what you didn't put in the cart?
Rent is not just a monthly payment. In Canada, it's a transfer of wealth from the young and ambitious to the old and established. You're looking at a 400-square-foot condo in downtown Toronto, and the price tag is more than your father's entire house back home. The landlord, a faceless numbered company, demands your credit score, your first and last month, and a piece of your soul. You're paying for the privilege of living in a city that's increasingly hostile to those who don't already have millions. The shadow fact of the Canadian real estate market is that it's not a housing market. It's a globalized asset class where you are the yield. You see the cranes on the horizon, but none of those buildings are for you. They are vertical bank accounts for the world's elite. The pain of writing that rent check every month is the sound of your future being postponed. You realize that to get ahead, you can't just work a job. You have to become a capitalist in a country that punishes labor and rewards equity. The curiosity gap deepens. How did an immigrant with no credit history and no Canadian cosigner bypass this predatory system to eventually own the very buildings that once shut him out? It starts with a radical rejection of the standard lifestyle that society tells you is mandatory. The commute is where dreams go to die. Whether it's the 401 parking lot or the flickering lights of the TTC, you spend 2 hours a day in a liminal space of collective misery. You look at the faces around you, gray, tired, eyes glued to phones, escaping a reality they can't afford to change. This is the hidden tax on your life force. You're trading 500 hours a year just to get to a place that pays you just enough to come back the next day. The psychological toll of the GTA grind is a shadow fact that no one discusses at dinner parties. We talk about the weather, but we don't talk about the soul-crushing exhaustion of the rat race in a country where the finish line keeps moving. You see the luxury SUVs in the HOV lane, driven by people who seem to have cracked the code, while you're stuck in the fumes of a transit bus. The emotional pain is the realization that your most valuable asset, time, is being burned for fuel. Our protagonist sat in this same traffic, but he wasn't listening to the radio. He was using those hours to dismantle his poverty mindset. He realized that if you do what everyone else does, you will have what everyone else has, a mountain of debt and a heart full of regret. The loop. What was he listening to that changed his DNA from a worker to a winner? The TFSA is the most misunderstood weapon in the Canadian financial arsenal. Most people treat it like a savings account, a place to park a few $1,000s at 1% interest while inflation eats them alive. This is the TFSA mistake that keeps the middle class poor. The shadow fact? The banks want you to use it as a savings account because it keeps your capital stagnant and available for them to lend out at 20% on credit cards. They don't tell you that the S in TFSA should stand for strategies, not savings. Our immigrant hero realized that the TFSA was a legal tax haven, a way to build a fortune that the CRA can never touch. He didn't put cash in it, he put high-growth engines. He saw the TFSA as his private offshore account, right here in the Great White North. The pain of seeing your peers waste their contribution room on high-interest accounts that pay less than the cost of a Big Mac is visceral. You're watching people leave millions on the table because they're afraid of a red day on the TSX. But how do you pick the right engines when the world feels like it's ending? The curiosity gap? There is a specific type of asset that thrives in the Canadian climate, and it's not what the experts on the news are pumping. Credit card debt in Canada is the modern-day equivalent of indentured servitude. The mail arrives, and it's a stack of pre-approved offers, each one a trapdoor to a life of interest payments. The banks make it so easy to spend money you haven't earned, to buy things you don't need, to impress people you don't like. This is the convenience trap. You see the 19.99% interest rate and think it's just a number, but it's actually the sound of your freedom being auctioned off. The emotional pain of minimum payments is a slow poison that kills your ability to take risks. You can't quit your soul-sucking job because you owe Visa for a vacation you've already forgotten. The shadow fact is that the Canadian economy is propped up by this consumer debt. If we all stopped paying interest, the system would collapse. Our protagonist saw the easy credit for what it was, a chain. He lived like a pauper while earning a king's salary, rejecting the Canadian urge to keep up with the Joneses, who, by the way, are bankrupt and just don't know it yet. He understood that in a high-interest world, being debt-free is a superpower. But how do you break the cycle when every advertisement is a psychological trigger designed to make you feel less than if you don't have the latest iPhone? Winter in Canada isn't just a season, it's a financial and psychological stress test. The days get shorter, the heating bills get longer, and the cost of simply staying warm becomes a line item in your budget that competes with your investments. You're scraping ice off a windshield at 6 a.m., your fingers numb, wondering if this is what you moved across the world for. The social isolation of the cold months is the shadow fact of Canadian life. Everyone retreats into their heated boxes, and the community you hope for vanishes. The emotional pain of loneliness is a silent killer of ambition. You feel like a ghost in a frozen landscape. This is where most people give up and settle for a comfortable life of Netflix and takeout. But our immigrant saw the winter as a competitive advantage. While others were hibernating, he was building. He realized that the Canadian winter is the ultimate filter. It weeds out the weak and rewards those who can maintain their fire when the world is sub-zero. He used the isolation to master the skills that the market pays handsomely for. The curiosity gap. What are the high-value skills that are recession-proof and winter-proof in the Canadian economy? It's not about working harder, it's about working on the right things while everyone else is asleep.
The Bank of Canada is a name that strikes fear into the hearts of every mortgage holder in the country. Tiff Macklem speaks, and suddenly thousands of dollars vanish from family budgets overnight. The interest rate hikes of the last few years have been a masterclass in dark psychology. The message is clear: we will break the economy to save the currency. But who gets broken? Not the banks, who post record profits. It's the family in the suburbs who thought their variable rate was a safe bet. The shadow fact is that the system is designed to transfer property from the over-leveraged to the liquid. Our protagonist didn't fear the rate hikes, he anticipated them. He understood the debt cycle better than the economists on CBC. He knew that when blood is in the streets, or when the for sale signs start multiplying in the GTA, that is the only time the gates of wealth are left unguarded. The emotional pain of seeing your home equity evaporate is enough to make anyone quit. But for the prepared, it's a signal. The curiosity gap. How do you position yourself to be the buyer when everyone else is a forced seller? It requires a stomach of iron and a secret cash pile that the CRA doesn't know how to tax. The turning point happens not in a boardroom, but in a moment of pure, unadulterated defiance. You're standing in line at a Tim Hortons, looking at the roll-up to win the hup, and you realize you're playing a game designed for losers. You decide right then that you will no longer be an average Canadian. The average Canadian has $70,000 in debt, less than $1,000 in savings, and a mounting sense of dread about the future. To be average in Canada is to be slowly drowning. The shadow fact? Society hates those who leave the pack. When you start saving the secret side hustle in Canada isn't about driving for Uber or delivering pizzas. That's just trading one low-wage cage for another. The real wealth is built in the unseen economy. This is the shadow fact that the government doesn't want to admit. The middle class is surviving on gray market activities and digital arbitrage. Our protagonist found a niche that didn't exist in the official Canadian job market. He used the immigrant edge, the ability to see gaps in the market that locals are too comfortable to notice. He started a business from his kitchen table that served a global audience while paying Canadian taxes on his own terms. He realized that a Canadian passport is a golden ticket to the global financial system, but only if you stop thinking locally. The emotional pain of the 9-to-5 grind became his fuel. Every performance review was a reminder that he was a line item in someone else's ledger. He decided to become the ledger. The curiosity gap. What is the invisible business model that allows you to earn USD while living in a CAD world, effectively bypassing the Canadian inflation crisis? It's a strategy that requires zero capital, but 100% obsession. The RRSP is often sold as a retirement tool, but that's a lie for the masses. For the wealthy, the RRSP is a tax arbitrage engine. The shadow fact is that the government is essentially giving you an interest-free loan of your own tax money, provided you know how to invest it. Our immigrant hero looked at his tax bracket and realized the CRA was his biggest expense. By maximizing his RRSP, he forced the government to send him a refund, a tax gift that he didn't spend on a trip to Mexico, but immediately reinvested. This is the wealth flywheel. You use the government's money to buy assets that pay you more money to buy more assets. The emotional pain of seeing people wait until they're 65 to touch their money is a tragedy of lost compounding. He understood that the RRSP is a tool for the now, not just the then. He used the refunds to build a portfolio that would eventually make the RRSP itself look like pocket change. But there's a dark side to the RRSP, the withdrawal trap that ruins people in their old age. He knew the exit strategy before he even made the first deposit. The loop: how do you get your money out of the RRSP without the CRA taking 50%? Dividends versus capital gains. This is the debate that keeps Canadian investors up at night. But it's the wrong question. The real question is, who is paying for your life? Most Canadians are capital gains junkies. They buy a stock or a house and hope it goes up. They are speculators, not investors. The shadow fact is that hope is not a financial plan. Our protagonist focused on yield. He wanted to build a dividend fortress, a collection of Canadian banks, utilities, and pipelines that paid him to exist. He realized that the big 5 banks in Canada are essentially a protected cartel. Why fight them when you can own them? The emotional pain of a market crash is non-existent when the dividends keep hitting your account like clockwork. He watched his portfolio grow while the world panicked during the Great Reset. He wasn't checking the price of the stock, he was checking the reliability of the payout. The curiosity gap. There is a specific dividend growth strategy that outperforms the TSX and the S&P 500 over the long term, and it's hidden in plain sight in the TSX 60. But you have to know which dogs of the TSX are actually purebred winners, and which are just dying businesses. The low-cost lifestyle in a high-cost country is an act of rebellion. You see people in the GTA leasing BMWs while they live in basement apartments. This is the Canadian facade. They are hood rich but balance sheet poor. The shadow fact is that consumerism is a form of self-medication for the stress of the Canadian economy. We buy things to feel like we're winning because we know deep down we're losing. Our immigrant hero rejected the facade. He drove a 10-year-old Toyota and shopped at thrift stores, not because he had to, but because he was buying back his freedom. The emotional pain of looking poor is nothing compared to the visceral joy of being wealthy. He realized that every dollar he didn't spend was a soldier working for him in the market. He turned his life into a lean, mean, wealth-generating machine. He bypassed the lifestyle creep that kills most careers. The curiosity gap. How do you maintain a high quality of life while spending 70% less than the average Canadian? It involves a psychological reframing of what luxury actually is. Hint, it's not a brand name. It's the ability to say no to any boss at any time.
How do banks really use your money? This is the shadow fact that would cause a riot if people truly understood it. When you put $1,000 in a high-interest savings account, the bank uses fractional reserve banking to turn that into $10,000 of loans to your neighbors at 10 times the interest they pay you. You are the liquidity that fuels their profit machine. Our protagonist realized he was being played. He decided to stop being the liquidity and start being the lender. He moved his capital out of the traditional banking system and into private lending and mortgage investment corporations, MICs. He saw that in the Canadian housing crisis, the person who holds the debt is the king. The emotional pain of seeing your savings lose value to inflation while the bank makes record profits is the ultimate wake-up call. He stopped asking for permission from his financial advisor, who is really just a salesperson for the bank's mutual funds, and started taking control of his own shadow bank. The curiosity gap. How can a regular person act like a bank in Canada without needing a banking license? There are legal, regulated loopholes that the top 1% use to bypass the savings trap entirely.
Scaling a business in Canada is a game of tax chicken. As soon as you start making real money, the CRA shows up with a bigger shovel. The shadow fact of Canadian entrepreneurship is that the system is designed to keep you small. Once you cross the $500,000 small business deduction limit, the rules change. Our hero didn't just work harder, he worked smarter with his corporate structure. He understood the power of holding companies and family trusts. He realized that in Canada, it's not about how much you make, it's about how you characterize what you make. The emotional pain of the entrepreneurial struggle, the late nights, the missed birthdays, the constant risk, is only worth it if you can protect the harvest. He saw his business as a wealth vehicle, not just a job. He scaled from a solo operation to a team of 10, utilizing the scientific research and experimental development (SR&D) tax credits to fund his innovation. The curiosity gap. What is the one secret tax credit that can refund up to 60% of your labor costs in Canada? Most business owners have never even heard of it, but it's the reason some startups in Waterloo and Toronto never seem to run out of cash. The networking lie is that you need to go to expensive mixers and hand out business cards to get ahead. In Canada, who you know is important, but who knows what you can do is everything. The shadow fact. The most powerful networks in Canada are closed loops, immigrant communities, alumni of specific schools, and secret societies of investors. Our protagonist didn't try to break into the old boys club, he built his own. He leveraged the immigrant diaspora to find opportunities that weren't listed on LinkedIn. He realized that the Canadian politeness is often a mask for gatekeeping. The emotional pain of being the outsider was his greatest strength. It meant he wasn't bound by the Canadian way of doing things, which is often slow and risk-averse. He moved with a speed and aggression that shocked the locals. He understood that in a nice country, the ruthless person who is also kind wins every time. The curiosity gap. How do you build a power network from scratch when you have zero connections and a foreign name? It starts with a specific type of value-first outreach that is impossible to ignore.
The real estate bubble in Canada is the elephant in the room that everyone is trying to ignore. We are told it's a supply issue, but the shadow fact is that it's a monetary issue. When money is cheap, houses are expensive. When money gets expensive, the whole deck of cards shakes. Our protagonist didn't buy into the FOMO, fear of missing out, when everyone was bidding $200K over asking in 2021. He waited. He knew the dark psychology of a bubble. The last person to buy is the one who pays for everyone else's exit. The emotional pain of watching your friends make millions on paper while you sit on the sidelines is intense, but he knew that paper wealth is an illusion until the cash hits the bank. He studied the rent-to-price ratio and realized the math didn't work. He waited for the correction that the media said would never come. And when the BOC rates hit 5% and the for sale signs started to linger, he was the only one with the cash to move. The curiosity gap. There is a magic number in Canadian real estate, a specific cap rate that tells you when a property is a buy and when it's a trap. Most agents don't even know what it is.
The immigrant edge is the secret sauce of Canadian wealth. When you come from a place where the government can collapse overnight or where the currency can lose 50% of its value in a week, you have a survival instinct that the average Canadian lacks. The shadow fact is that stability breeds weakness. Because Canadians feel safe, they take the most dangerous risk of all, doing nothing. They trust the pension, they trust the RRSP, they trust the system. Our immigrant hero trusted nothing but his own balance sheet. He realized that the Canadian dream is actually a Canadian nap, a state of semi-consciousness where you wake up at 65 and wonder where your life went. The emotional pain of his past, the hunger, the uncertainty, the zero he started from, was a battery that never ran out. He didn't want comfort, he wanted control. He saw Canada not as a home, but as a platform to build a global empire. The curiosity gap. How do you keep that day one intensity when you finally have $1 million in the bank? Most people soften. The true winners sharpen their blades. He developed a wealth maintenance psychology that is more rigorous than the wealth building phase.
The moment of freedom doesn't come with a fanfare. It comes on a Tuesday afternoon when you're looking at your net worth spreadsheet and you realize that your passive income now exceeds your living expenses. This is the crossover point. The shadow fact? Most people will never reach this because they keep raising their expenses as their income grows. Our protagonist hit this point because he frozen his lifestyle. He was still living in that same modest home, driving the same car, but his digital soldiers were bringing in $10,000 a month in dividends, rent, and business profits. The emotional pain of the struggle was replaced by a strange, quiet nothingness. The fear was gone. He realized that financial freedom isn't about buying Ferraris. It's about the power to walk away. He could walk away from any deal, any person, and any situation. He had FU money in a country that tries to keep you saying please. The curiosity gap? What is the first thing he did when he realized he was free? It wasn't a party. It was a deep audit of his life to ensure he would never have to go back to the basement again.
The middle class in Canada is disappearing, and it's not an accident. The shadow fact is that a two-tier society is being formed, those who own assets and those who are assets. If you don't own your home, your stocks, or your business, you are being harvested by the renter economy. The emotional pain of this realization is the final wake-up call. You see the tent cities in the parks of major cities and realize that the safety net is full of holes. The warning is clear. If you don't build your own economic fortress, you are at the mercy of a government that is more concerned with optics than outcomes. Our hero saw the writing on the wall years ago. He realized that saving the middle class is a political slogan, but building wealth is a personal responsibility. He looked at his children and realized that without his wealth, they would be modern peasants in their own country. The curiosity gap. What is the one asset class that will survive the upcoming Great Canadian Wealth Transfer? It's not real estate and it's not Bitcoin. It's something much more antique and much more permanent. The final secret of the man who built wealth from zero in Canada is this: the country is a gold mine disguised as a bore. Everyone complains about the taxes, the weather, and the small market, but those are the very things that keep the weak competition out. The shadow fact: if you can thrive in Canada, you can thrive anywhere. The dark psychology of his success was his inversion of the Canadian experience. He loved the taxes because they led to tax deductions that others didn't use. He loved the cold because it gave him focused time. He loved the oligopolies because he could buy their shares and participate in their looting. He realized that the game isn't about changing the system, it's about mastering the system as it is. The open loop for you: you are currently standing where he stood. You have the same CRA, the same Loblaws, and the same Bank of Canada. The only thing you don't have is his shadow strategy. But what if I told you that the first step to your first million isn't a budget, but a psychological break from everything you've been told about being a good Canadian? The real journey begins when you stop being good and start being free. Are you ready to stop being the yield and